This sometimes comes across as Elon's trying to just be a crazy, whatever, billionaire and demand outrageous things from other countries. And, while that is true, in addition, there are other things that I think are valid, which is like we obviously can't. I think any given thing that we do at X Corp, we've got to be able to explain in the light of day and not feel that it was dishonorable. Or the next flight of Starship, which Starship is the next flight of Starship is ready to fly. We are waiting for regulatory approval.
Yeah.
It really should not be possible to build a giant rocket faster than the paper can move from one desk to another. But I mean, for a lot of people, their maybe most direct experience with the government is the DMV. And then the important thing to remember is that the government is the DMV at scale.
Right.
That's the government.
Got the mental picture.
How much do you want to scale it? A recent example that is just insane is that SpaceX was fined by the EPA $140,000 for they claimed dumping potable water on the ground, drinking water. So, and we're like, this is at Starbase, and we're like, we're in a tropical thunderstorm region. That stuff comes from the sky all the time, and there was no actual harm done. It was just water to cool the launch pad during liftoff, and there's zero harm done. And they agree, yes, there's zero harm done. And we're like, okay, so there's no harm done, and but you want us to pay a $140,000 fine? It's like, yes, because you didn't have a permit. Okay, we didn't know there was a permit needed for zero harm. Fresh water being on the ground in a place where fresh water falls from the sky all the time.
Got it. Next to the ocean.
Next to the ocean.
Because there's a little bit of water there too.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it rains so much the roads are flooded. So we're like, how does this make any sense?
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, we're not going to process any more of your applications for launch, for Starship launch, unless you pay this $140,000. So they just ransomed us, and we're like, okay, so we paid $140,000, but it's like, this is no good. I mean, at this rate, we're never going to get to Mars.
I mean, that's the confounding part here.
Yeah.
Is we're acting against our own self-interest. When you look at.
Yeah, I think we've if Trump wins, and obviously I suspect there are people with mixed feelings about whether that should happen, but we do have an opportunity to do kind of a once-in-a-lifetime deregulation and reduction in the size of government. Because the other thing, besides the regulations, America is also going bankrupt extremely quickly. And everyone seems to be sort of whistling past the graveyard on this one. But
they're all grabbing the silverware. Everyone's stuffing their pockets in the silverware before the Titanic sinks. It's like,
well, the Defense Department budget is a very big budget. Okay, it's $1 trillion a year. DoD Intel, it's $1 trillion, and interest payments on the national debt just exceeded the Defense Department budget. They're over $1 trillion a year, just in interest, and rising. We're adding $1 trillion to our debt, which our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay somehow. Every 3 months, and then soon it's going to be every 2 months, and then every month, and then the only thing we'll be able to pay is interest. And if this is, it's just it's just like a person at scale that has racked up too much credit card debt. This does not have a good ending. And so we have to.
In 4 years, if you could shrink the size of the government with Trump, what would be a good target? Just in terms of like ballpark.
I mean, are you trying to get me assassinated before this even happens?
No. Pick a low number.
I mean, there's that old phrase, go postal. I mean, it's like they might.
Yeah.
Of me.
So we'll keep the post office.
I need a hell of a security details, guys.
Yes.
I mean, the sheer number of disgruntled workers, former government employees, is quite a scary number. I mean, I might not make it.
I was saying low digits every year for 4 years would be palatable. Yeah, and I like your idea of an off-ramp.
But the thing is that if it's not done, like if you have a once in a lifetime or once in a generation opportunity, and you don't take serious action, and then you have 4 years to get it done, and then if it doesn't get done, then
how serious is Trump about this? Like you've talked to him about it, yeah?
Yeah, I think he is very serious about it.
Got it.
And no, I think actually the reality is that if we get rid of nonsense regulations and shift people from the government sector to the private sector, we will have immense prosperity, and I think we will have a golden age in this country, and it'll be fantastic. You wrote autonomous cars, and you need the sort of humanoid robots or general purpose robots. But once you have general purpose humanoid robots and autonomous vehicles, you can build anything. And I think that there's no actual limit to the size of the economy. I mean, there's obviously the mass of Earth, like that will be one limit. But the economy is really just the average productivity per person times number of people. That's the economy. And if you've got humanoid robots that can do, where there's no real limit on the number of humanoid robots, and they can operate very intelligently, then there's no actual limit to the economy. There's no meaningful limit to the economy. So, like, as we're designing Optimus, we sort of learn more and more about why humans are shaped the way they're shaped, and why we have 5 fingers and why your little finger is smaller than your index finger. Obviously why you have opposable thumbs, but also why, for example, the major muscles that operate your hand are actually in your forearm, and your fingers are primarily operated the muscles that actuate your fingers are located. The vast majority of your finger strength is actually coming from your forearm, and your fingers are being operated by tendons, little strings. And so the current version of the Optimus hand has the actuators in the hand and has only 11 degrees of freedom. So it doesn't have all the degrees of freedom of human hand, which has, depending on how you count it, roughly 25 degrees of freedom. Right. And it's also like not strong enough in certain ways because the actuators have to fit in the hand. So the next generation Optimus hand, which we have in prototype form, the actuators have moved to the forearm, just like a human, and they operate the fingers through cables, just like a human hand. And then the next generation hand has 22 degrees of freedom, which we think is enough to do almost anything that a human can do.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. These are the highlights of Elon Musk's podcast with the All In podcast yesterday. It's really popular right now. There's a lot of highlights all over Twitter. And my goal is to save you, the viewer, time. Instead of going and watching an hour-long podcast, I watch it for you. I choose the best moments. I combine them together and let you watch a short clip so you get the gist of it. So a few highlights that I wanted to mention, and if you get value out of these videos, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate it. It helps support the channel. So a few things that Elon Musk spoke about. First of all, was the EPA fine for no permits. Basically, he's trying to go over a lot of government inefficiencies that are out right now. In this specific example, he's talking about the Starlink base where a bunch of water fell. It's a tropical region, and they had to pay $140,000, or else he wouldn't be able to fly rockets? What? And I've noticed that in this podcast, a few times he mentions government inefficiencies like this. Why is that? Because if Trump wins, he really wants to make this a big case for himself and be the chief of Department of Government Inefficiencies. And Department of Government Efficiencies, actually. And for those that haven't noticed, Department of Government Efficiencies is actually has the initials of Dogecoin. Uh, what do you think? Coincidence? I think not. So another time he mentions the inefficiencies in government is it shouldn't be possible for him to finish a rocket before the permits are done. Basically, a piece of paper gets from one desk to another. And again, he's labeling out the efficiencies in government of getting a permit through, especially in California, where I've heard stories, nightmares, where getting a permit for a fence took months, years, whatever. It's honestly pretty crazy. And the government is basically the DMV at scale. Again, you see this theme come up over and over again. Now, something I didn't actually put in these highlight clips, which was a good point made, was one of the guys in the podcast. He basically said, "Hey, um, what if another government doesn't have bureaucracy and they get all this type of technology that you have? Can't they technically get the rockets done and get to Mars before us?" And Elon said, "I mean, yeah, technically they could, but no one's that crazy to uh, basically that far ahead in technology as we are, and no one's crazy enough to do it like I am." But that is a good point where there are governments that, if they choose to, and if they had the technology, they could probably do it before us, just because there's not all these, bureaucracies, and it's just one king says do this, and no one else argues it. So if people were as smart, had and has had as much technology as us, they definitely could. Now, another thing that Elon Musk talks about is just how big the deficit is for the country and how it's not being brought up. No one's talking about it. In fact, we had the presidential debate last night. No one spoke about the deficit. And there's actually a funny point. I was watching, I don't know why I was watching this, but I was watching a debate from 1992 with Bill Clinton and who was it? George W. H.W. Bush, George Bush's dad, and another guy, Ron Terrell. And something I noticed in there right away was that the deficit and a balanced budget was actually a talking point. It was a topic. And when I compared it to the debate last night, no one even cares about it anymore, which is pretty sad. And Elon Musk brought up a good point, which everyone knows, I think, but no one talks about it, is that our interest payment on the debt is now bigger than our military budget, which is crazy. And he said, yeah, we're getting away with it now, but eventually there's going to be a point when the only thing we can pay is interest. And that's what people do when they have crazy amounts of credit card debt and then eventually end up filing for bankruptcy or taking some type of crazy action. And that's kind of what America is in track for, which is pretty sad. And another time, something else that Elon Musk talks about a decent amount is his humanoid robot. I forgot the name of it. What was it called? But anyways, so what I found interesting about this is, first of all, he said that if you have an unlimited amount, or if you have an unlimited amount of humanoid robots, you can pretty much have an unlimited economy, which is an interesting thought because that becomes your workforce. But it was also interesting to me as an engineer how technology is built off of biology. This is something that a really smart engineer once told me. Like, if you look at airplanes, they got the wings like a bird, and if you look at, even suction cups, they get that off of octopus. It's just really weird. It's interesting how most of our mechanical technology is based off of biology. And even the humanoid robot, the Optimus, that's the name that Elon Musk is designing. They're even noticing how, when we had all the actuators and everything in the wrist itself, it just made the wrist too big and bulky and it couldn't move. But then when you copy the human technology, where you have strings, you have the muscles in the forearms and the strings that control this, it really makes you appreciate our biology and how insane it is. And it also made his technology a lot more efficient. Well, regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed these highlights. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.